Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching Welcome to Plathville. Let's get to the show.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to leave you. I wouldn't want to be left alone with my parents.
Okay, so
It's just like when you get cornered, and they have a way of like basically like no matter what you say, they make you feel like you're at fault.
yeah.
For any scenario.
All right, so a little bit more data that for Micah, he believes that no matter what you say, they always make it out to be your fault. Who knows what that means? On one hand, it could mean that the parents are extremely rigid and maybe even narcissistic on some level. Narcissistic people have a hard time admitting when they're wrong. Not because they're evil, but because they are so afraid of admitting vulnerability because they have a lot of traumas around being vulnerable as a young person. So that could be one possibility. On the other hand, it could just be that Micah is stubborn and believes that he's right. You know, it's not uncommon for a teenager such as Micah to have negative thoughts about one's parents, you know, because it's just part of growing up for a lot of. So I don't know where it is. Or is it somewhere in between? Maybe we'll find out.
When I moved out of the house, like, I was angry and frustrated, and I didn't want any communication with them except for the stuff that was extremely necessary.
This is nerve-wracking.
This doesn't feel like home. It feels like a trap, a cage that I worked so hard to get out of, and I don't like going back.
I mean, one of the things that we can point to is their emotions, that they're scared, that they are having a fight or flight reaction, and she feels like it's a trap, a cage, and she doesn't like going back. She doesn't like talking to her parents. So this usually indicates that there was ongoing issues emotionally from the parents to the kids. For kids to want to move out or to want freedom, you know, it's kind of normal. But for kids to not want to visit, for kids to be afraid as they're heading home, that's not a good sign.
We got a lot of catching up to do. I know. Yeah.
There's not much time to do it.
Okay, so they haven't seen each other what seems to be in months, which is interesting data.
Important piece of mail.
Really? Do you know what it is?
Looks like a car title. I just want to run up and throw my arms around them and give them a big hug, but I kind of am sensing that maybe they're not ready for that.
Yeah, that breaks my heart too. So maybe Kim is a bad parent and deserves the cold shoulder. I don't know. There certainly is some evidence of that, particularly the way the kids are feeling as they're heading home. But at the very least, it's just, for any parent, it is one of the worst things you could possibly imagine, where your kids just don't like you and they don't want to be with you and they don't even necessarily love you anymore. It's just one of the worst tragedies. Now, of course, you could argue that that's the parent's fault. So I guess it's a tragedy all around. All kids want to feel safe around their parents and to feel like their parents accept them for who they are. So yeah, there's just a lot of tragedies.
You're almost as tall as me. I am. It's been so long since I've seen most of my siblings. Like Isaac and Lydia, it's been 4 months. What have we missed? Who are you?
When I saw Isaac, that really shocked me. He was like at least 4 inches taller than when I last saw him.
And it just breaks my heart to see, what's his name? Isaac, his just giddy, glowing, happy, longing face for his older brother. And the loss, it sounds like he says it's been a number of months since he's seen his younger brother, and that it's just so tragic. It's just such a, because what I could sense was that this was fixable. And like I always say, people, if you fall off the roof and you break your arm, and you don't walk around the house going, why does my arm hurt? You go to the physician, you go to the hospital. When you have a problem in your family, you call a family therapist, please.
We're just playing guitars. What are we gonna do?
You guys sound good together. I mean, for not having played at all.
the last year.
Right. So probably everyone understands that the mom entered the room so that the outsider of Micah couldn't influence Isaac in a negative way. And we see the displeasure on Micah's face that he's just like, look, we're just in here playing guitar. Why do you have to come in here? Now, if the mom had come in there on different circumstances, then maybe Micah would have been fine with it. But it's pretty clear that she's there to supervise the visit. And that's going to be pretty aggravating and hurtful. And it's going to make it awkward such that Micah and Isaac can't really bond. And this is part of that inflexibility that I've been talking about, that for the mom, she can't kind of see the bigger picture here. That, okay, you know what? I want my kids to be happy, and I've determined that the best chance I have at making my kids happy is to keep them away from social media, keeping them away from bullies, keeping them away from temptation. There's nothing wrong with that inherently. And she wants that. Okay, you want that. But to keep the children, Isaac here, away from his brother, or to interfere with that relationship, or to make Micah so uncomfortable that he only comes around every 4 months. Now, what's the cost that you're having here? On one hand, you're trying to protect your kids, which is good. We want all parents to want to protect their kids. But on the other hand, your protection is going so far that you're preventing your kids from having relationships with each other, which they desperately need, and you're causing pain in them. So where's the flexibility there? How do you balance those two? I want Isaac, the young boy, to be protected and safe and happy. But I also want him to have a good relationship with his older brother and to not feel so alone and to feel like he has other male siblings that are in the house with him. I want both of those things. So these are, these things are in tension with each other. They're in conflict. There's a dialectic there. There's a debate in my heart about what to do. Well, what do I do about that? Well, if the mom had come to me with that, what I would say is, let's try to get a situation where we'll bring in Micah and you can talk with him about what you want him to talk about with Isaac and what you don't want him to talk. Because I'm guessing that Micah doesn't care to influence Isaac in a bad way. I'm guessing Micah just wants to hang out with his brother. And what's Micah going to do? Oh, there's this thing called Twitter, and I'm going to infect your mind, Isaac. I'm guessing Micah is not interested in that. So maybe there's a way to make it work so that you don't have to interfere, you don't have to invade, but you also can be reassured that Micah is going to uphold your wishes, which is to not influence Isaac in a negative way. I mean, Micah seems like a really good kid, so I just can't imagine the older brother here doing anything bad. Maybe there's something that we haven't seen yet, but so that's that inflexibility that I've been talking about. The inability to say, okay, there's a dialectic here, what do I do? A similar problem is like you have a kid who really wants to go to a party and she is 15 years old. And in your mind as a parent, you're like, that's really like a 16 or 17-year-old sort of privilege. And the 15-year-old's like, but all my friends are going to be there. And if I'm not there, then it's just going to be a disaster for me. And normally you're just like, yeah, you know what? No, you can't go. But you're seeing the pain in the child's face, and there's something particular about this party. And so maybe this one-off freedom giving would be best for the whole picture, the bigger picture involved in what we're hoping for our kids. We want them to be safe, and we want them to take it slow growing up, slow enough anyway. But we also want them to have a good time and to not lose out on friendship and to not resent us for holding them back about things that they think that might be entitled to them. But then we don't want to spoil our kids, and we don't want to have kids get grown up too fast. We don't want kids leaving the house till 2 a.m. at the age of 13, this sort of thing. So there's always this debate, and I wonder if the mom is frequently erring on the side of safety and caution because of what she went through. She's talked about the traumas that she's been through, not only as a child, but as a young adult as well. I'm wondering if the mom has a lot of unresolved traumas around those years, and once she could heal from those, she would perhaps see the forest for the trees and be able to be a little bit more flexible here. I don't know.
I know that Micah and Isaac want some privacy, but right now there's just some trust that has to be built back up. The last year has been so hurtful, so painful for Barry and I. We've seen things in Micah that we don't want to rub off on Isaac, like bitterness against us, for example.
Right, which makes sense. No parent wants their kids to be bitter against them and don't want bitter to move through the sibling ranks. So what I would say is perhaps a solution, instead of control and invasion and enmeshment, is to resolve the conflict between you and Micah such that Micah doesn't have any resentment towards you. Maybe that's the solution, is how can we repair that bitterness so that you can leave Micah and Isaac alone and wouldn't have to worry about bitterness being spread through the family.
Now that Mom's gone, what's it been like living here without me here, without Mariah?
It feels pretty much the same, except for you're not here and my room's cleaner.
I wish we could like hang out more.
You can come over and visit anytime, like we're just here.
It's just hard to come over, not because of like you guys. Like I want to see y'all so bad.
So now it's happening where Micah, the older boy, is saying, you know what, how does it feel to be stuck at home? And it's just so hard to come over here because, Mom, and I want to see you more. And this is where it starts to happen, where now Isaac starts to say, my brother, whom I love and I want to be with, is starting to make sense that maybe Mom is the problem. Maybe Mom is too strict. Maybe I should go live with Micah. Maybe I should start demanding that. This is where it starts. And the mom is right to worry about this. But again, the solution is not to control, because you can never control everything. As soon as she leaves the room, according to Micah, probably to check on Mariah, boom, that's when he started in. I wonder if the mom never entered the room, if Micah never would have brought this up, because he wouldn't have been reminded of the anger and the bitterness that he has towards the mom. So I wonder if this season is just going to be a progression further into the inflexibility and the divide in this family, which I think is just so unnecessary. But I often find that almost all the conflict on these shows is unnecessary. I almost always see that there's potential in these families and these couples. Some couples, I'm like, I don't know. But particularly in this family, I'm just so worried. Maybe they'll pull out of the nosedive. We'll watch.
But it's just like the whole mom and dad situation.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of that you understand or how much you want to go into it, but
Yeah. I don't know. It's not that I don't care, but I'm just going to stay out of it and just, once I get older, I'll do my own thing.
yeah.
All right. So Isaac is saying, yeah, okay, I get it, but I don't want to get involved. I'd rather not. Now, is that because he doesn't want to get involved? Because he knows who he is? Is it because he's terrified of the conflict that could happen if he gets disapproval from his parents? Does he want to just avoid the conflict? All those things could be true. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely, like, respect our parents, but, like, think for yourself. Like, question things and build up your own idea and opinion of things. Don't 100% rely on what our parents say.
Okay, that's interesting. So for Micah, it sounds like this is the advice that he wished someone would have given him when he was 14, when he was Isaac's age. That for Micah, he is saying, I wish someone would have told me that I didn't have to go along with everything my parents were saying, that some of the things the parents are saying are, it's questionable. And I didn't know that at the time. And I'm guessing that Micah would say something like, and I really felt ashamed of who I was, or I really blamed myself for felt like there was something wrong with me because I didn't agree with everything the parents were saying. And I didn't like the way I felt about that. And so I want to help my younger brother by telling him it's okay to think different. It's okay to do that. I don't know if that's what Micah is saying. I mean, another possibility that Micah is saying is, look, feel free to defy our parents because you deserve to push back. I don't know if that's what he's saying. I'm guessing it's more of like the inner life that he's trying to speak to. I don't know.
Because that's what I did, and it was just really hard.
In all honesty, I don't really feel like either of my parents tried their hardest to give us the best education. They were more worried about the evils in this world. It's on me and Mariah and Ethan to help our younger siblings.
Right. So I've been speculating that the religious adherence in this family is much bigger than what they're portraying on the show. I don't know that, but Micah just indicated a little bit of just like, yeah, our parents spent a lot of time trying to protect us from the evils of the world. And I'm guessing that, I guess there's a possibility that those evils are not just like bad things, like, stay away from drugs because drugs are bad, okay? That it's actually devil stuff, that if you do that, it is the road to eternal damnation. I wouldn't be surprised if they had that point of view, and that would be potentially very shaming to children. In a extreme situation, you have a gay kid who knows that she's gay at the age of 12 or 13, and it starts to indicate, I think I like girls and not boys. And then to be shamed and told that's evil and that is devil stuff and that is the road to eternal damnation in hell. And you could imagine, we've all heard of children then feeling very ashamed of who they are and having a lot of psychological trauma because of that, because of those messages that even though they don't entirely believe, but it's just having them beat down in that way. So we can imagine that very dogmatic, rigid way of thinking also being very harmful to kids in terms of their identity, of Mariah or Micah saying, yeah, I mean, I'm on board with some of this stuff, but some of it I'm just not on board with. And then for the parents to come down hard on that and say, like, there's something wrong with you and we need to get rid of that. That's the demons talking, or that's the devil talking. You're listening to the devil. There's something wrong with you. Is possible. Again, we don't have any direct evidence of like what actually happened on the ground with the parents, but it's just one of the possibilities.
As you grow up, you'll learn more of what you want to do, who you want to be.
I just see it as I can choose who influences me and who doesn't. And I feel like I can make my own decisions and I don't have to do what my parents' ideas are, or Micah's, or Ethan and Olivia's, or anyway. I can do whatever I want for myself.
So that's great. Isaac seems to have a good head on his shoulders. I mean, we haven't heard a lot from him, but that's a pretty good attitude given his scenario. He's just like, look, my parents want me to do one thing, my older siblings want me to do another thing, and I'm just, I'm going to do what I want, and so stay out of my head. I think that's as healthy as you can be in a conflict like that.
Anytime you need something, just let me know.
Okay, well, thanks.
Because going from how we were raised to the real world, it's like the biggest step one could ever take.
So this is what we call triangulation in family systems theory. We have a conflict between the older siblings and the parents. And the younger siblings are being triangulated in, particularly Isaac, because I think they don't triangulate Lydia because she's so compliant and in line with the parents. But Isaac is the logical person to triangulate in terms of, if the parents can get Isaac on their side, then they win. If the older siblings can get Isaac on their side, then they win. They're both looking to win against the conflict, to spite the other person on the other side by trying to get Isaac's loyalty. And Isaac feels that pull, it seems. And the problem is we have a conflict between the older siblings and the parents. That's what we shouldn't put Isaac in the middle of that, for sure. We should never make Isaac choose between those two things.
But right now it's just between me and God, so.
I feel like we should like go out or you come over so we can talk more about this.
I would definitely love to come over to your house sometime. You and Mommy can text, figure out what time works. And
You don't have a phone, do you?
no.
Do you plan on getting one?
I plan on getting one someday.
Do you have
Because
like any
they-
friends you hang out with?
So, similarly to Micah and Isaac, it seems as though Mariah is trying to triangulate Lydia into the conflict between Mariah and her parents. So we all understand there's a conflict between parents and Mariah, and they are both potentially trying to get Lydia to side with one or the other. And I don't know, but there seems to be some energy that Mariah is trying to get Lydia to rebel against the parents. And maybe that's a good thing for Lydia. I don't really know. But at the very least, it seems as though Mariah right now is saying, hey, do you have a boyfriend? And I want to know, and kind of giving some emotional pressure to Lydia to tell her. When Lydia said, I don't want to say who I like right now, Mariah seemed to be a little punishing, a little bit like a little bothered by that. I don't know if I'm reading into it. But then she says to Lydia, do you have a cell phone? When she knows that Lydia doesn't have a cell phone. And she's asking all these questions like, do you have friends? Like, essentially putting Lydia in this position of having to either defend her life and go like, actually, no, I don't have any friends and I'm okay with it. And I don't have a phone and I'm okay with it. Or, you know what, I really want friends. I really want a phone. Who knows? Now, so this raises another thing that I haven't really been talking much about, which is the reality that the kids don't have any friends, and if that is abusive to the children, which it certainly could be argued that it is. It's hard to know. I mean, as a family therapist, I didn't work with families that were like this, and so I don't really have much data or much idea of what the best situation is. Certainly, we would imagine that isolation and not having any friends would be a detriment, but at what level is it a detriment, right? Because having friends and being exposed to a lot of other kids can have its downside as well, as we all understand. And having friends with siblings, being friends with your siblings is, there's nothing wrong with that as well. We can look back in time and across to other cultures and see that a lot of farming communities, they don't have a lot of friends either, and they're just friends with their siblings, and they grow up to be fine people. So even though it looks weird to us, but it is kind of a question as to whether or not it's hindering the children somehow. At the very least, that they want to have friends, and they live now in suburbia. It's one thing when they lived on what I think it was a 55-acre farm, isolated from everyone else. It's another thing when they live in suburbia in a neighborhood with probably a lot of other kids, and they're completely prevented, especially Lydia, who is 16 now, from hanging out with them at all. That she can't go to the mall or go to a friend's house or have a friend over or something. That's completely off limits because of the evils of social media and cell phones and rock music. That the kid and the kids might feel very hindered in that way and almost abused in that way. Because I just for myself, I had friends in my neighborhood from the time I was born until I moved out of the house. And I would think that if I wasn't allowed to hang out with them, that would be pretty hard on me. To look out the window and see friends in the neighborhood like playing with each other, that would have been pretty awful. So I wonder about Lydia in this moment. But anyway, at the very least, we can know that for Mariah, she is now really trying to pressure Lydia to break free or to join their side. It just seems that way to me.
I do and believe that you think is crazy.
I don't think any of it is crazy.
Okay.
I just know if I were in your shoes or barefoot, I would feel caged in.
I don't feel caged in one bit.
Right. So Mariah would feel caged in because she did feel caged in. And Lydia is now saying, I don't feel caged in. And I think that Mariah probably believes that Lydia does feel caged in, but doesn't feel the freedom to say that she feels caged in. But I wouldn't be surprised if Lydia is totally fine with it. There's, some kids are, they're okay with that kind of lifestyle, that sort of isolated lifestyle. And Lydia might be one of those people. She also, Lydia, could be suppressing a lot of stuff. It's really hard to know for Lydia. At the very least, we know that Lydia and Mariah are very different people, and that the fact that Lydia doesn't see the world the way that Mariah does shouldn't surprise us.
Lydia and I respect each other. Even though she follows my parents in many ways, she has the ability to still accept me while not changing where she stands. And I kind of wish that that was how it was with my parents, that there was like just an understanding there, like you can live your way and I'll live mine, and let's just accept each other for that.
So I'm always trying to see through the interviews and imagine what the conversations were actually like between the parents and the kids. And from that statement, it sounds like, at least from Mariah's perspective, that the parents were essentially saying, you are unacceptable. And again, I keep wondering about the rigidity of the religious beliefs in this family, or at least the rigidity of the beliefs in this family. Maybe they're not religious beliefs, maybe they're just beliefs. And that it's black or white. You're either with us or you're against us. You're either with God or you're evil. You're either living a good life or you're living a very, very bad life. Again, given the mom's traumas, it kind of makes sense. If you didn't know already, I'm on Cameo. If people are interested in that sort of thing, it's fun to wish people happy birthday and happy anniversary and congratulations and whatnot. So if you're into that sort of thing, then go to Cameo, and I'm on there, and I will send you a personalized message. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.